All right, this is I Want You, parentheses, She's So Heavy by the Beatles. All right, so I took a little bit of artistic freedom with that one, but I had a lot of fun. This is so much fun. It's broken up into two different, almost feels like completely different things. The beginning, the part that's the I Want You, it almost sounds like it's going to be in what's called a 12-bar blues, but we actually never get there. So it starts in this A minor, and it's playing in an A minor pentatonic. And if you've seen any of my other videos that refer to pentatonic scales, you'll know that that's a 5-note scale. It's also a really common scale structure that's used for the blues because it includes something called a blue note, which they definitely get to. So the pentatonic scale it's inside of, the A minor, are these 5 notes. Now, wherever you have in a pentatonic scale 3 back-to-back whole steps, the blue note is located in between the second and third one, so right here. So that's where you hear. That's what gives it that really bluesy sound. And in fact, we end up having this little walk, I guess it's a walk up, then walk down that happens at the end of that. And all those notes except for the F comes in as a little bit of a surprise. It's kind of walking up your pentatonic scale. Then it does the same gesture from a D minor. And it switches to the D minor pentatonic. And there's that blue note. And this has actually, just in terms of a blues structure, is not that surprising that it's going to go to what would essentially be called the 4 chord. So if we start out on A is 1, and D would be 4. And typically within a blues structure, you're going to expect to go from your home chord to your 4, then you'd go back to your home chord, and then you'd end up at your 5. And the way that they play the 5 here is actually really surprising because they add what's called a flat 9 to it, and it ends up at the end of this. There's that E, and the E is essentially the 5 of A, but we end up including this note. That's what's called the flat 9. So if I'm playing an E chord and it says a flat 9, it means the note that I'm adding to it is a ninth away, but it's a flat, which means it's just a half step above your octave. And what's kind of interesting about this is what it creates is you have this bass tone, but this chord by itself is actually a fully diminished 7 chord. And those can kind of go wherever you want them to. But this E kind of creates the calling card as to where we're supposed to go. But then this whole ending where it gets into the She's So Heavy part, then we end up just going straight into D minor and kind of staying there. And we have this walking bass line. And I'm going to walk you through what happens here. So the whole beginning bass line, the chord that's being broken is a D minor until we land on this E. And then we have that E7 with a flat 9. That creates the flat 9. Then we have this chromatic walk down to a B flat 7. Then, this is the important chord in my opinion, the way it ends. This is an A augmented. And this is actually interesting for a couple of reasons. So an augmented chord is a 3-note chord that every single note of the chord is separated by 4 half steps. 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 half steps creates this augmented chord. They're also known as major thirds. And this is actually the complete opposite of a fully diminished chord because since there's only 12 notes within your chromatic scale, if I have a chord that is separated by 4 half steps, this chord continues indefinitely in either direction. And what's cool about these augmented chords is they're similar to a fully diminished 7 where they can kind of resolve wherever they want. And this actually resolves back to the D minor. But this is interesting for another reason, because I didn't actually have to have the augmented note for it to resolve back to a D minor, because the A chord, the A C sharp, if I just played it like this, That's the dominant chord, or the fifth chord of D minor. So it's already going to resolve, but this just adds a little layer of dissonance to it. And then it leads back. And that actually continues for quite a while. And so does the intro part. That blues part that I played, that repeats quite a lot. But yeah, that's a little breakdown of both sections of I Want You, She's So Heavy by the Beatles. All hail King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Yeah, this song is Plastic Boogie. What a jam, what a jam. Okay, so most of this is in a C sharp minor, and it's pretty much in the blues scale of that the whole time. So C sharp minor pentatonic. So what that would consist of, again, anytime you've seen a video of mine and I talk about pentatonic, it's 5-note scale, C sharp minor is going to be these 5 notes. So the main line, so we have this. So the interesting thing about this song isn't so much the fact that it's in C sharp minor or the blues, really. It's actually the time signature that makes this interesting. The majority of this song is in 5/4. What that means is that you have a 5/4 means you have 5, you're counting to 5, and we're counting in quarter notes. So on top of that, the main note, aside from the very beginning of it, does not strike on what you call a downbeat. It actually strikes on the upbeat at the end of the measure, which is why it ties over. So you'll hear it. That note right there, when it repeats, ends up actually coming in before the actual beat, which makes for a really cool jam. And on top of that, what makes this extra interesting is that the drums, the actual percussion of the song, is not playing in 5/4. It's essentially playing in 2/4 or 4/4, but because the 5/4 gesture happens 4 times, 4 times 5 is 20, so that'd be 20 beats. So that's an even number of beats. So what that means is that if you're playing just at a quarter note pace, you'll eventually catch up. So since it's an even number of measures, it lines up. So when you're listening to it, it almost sounds like this weird mixed meter because the drums are not playing in 5. They're playing in 2 or 4, depending on how you want to analyze it. But that just makes for something really cool. Now, when it gets into a triplet section, you heard me playing, that actually moves into 4/4. And those are going to be 16th note triplets. So you'll end up hearing 8 of them per measure. And that chord progression is going to be F sharp major to B major to C sharp major, C sharp augmented, back to F sharp, and then F sharp minor. And then we go back out. Now you also heard me doing a little jam that goes like this. So that's going back and forth between the C sharp minor and F sharp. And what's interesting about that F sharp is that it does this suspended note. That's called the suspended 4. for the first 4 of them, and then it actually changes the chord to a B. So for the first few, you feel like you're getting into a groove where you have this just C sharp and F sharp, but then halfway through it, they add in a B. So instead of being this, it ends up going to this, which gives it like a really cool variety to the gesture. But yeah, this is Plastic Boogie by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.